When we get married, our relationship may be void until the Spirit of the Lord moves upon it. The darkness covering our relationship may be due to trauma, the trauma we've experienced that needs healing, change, and transformation. We come to marriage without a clear vision of who God destined us to be. And we now must grow into the form He intended for us. So we must call forth light to come into our dark places, hurt and betrayals, and ask Him to make something out of the ashes of our lives. We call forth change. Our marriage will remain. We call forth change by overcoming Satan's agenda. Without the Spirit of the Lord, our marriage will remain without form, void and dark. Our marriage will remain without form, void and dark, without the Spirit of the Lord. Once the Spirit moves upon a marriage, purpose is discovered. Purpose is greater than your flesh. Your flesh is what wants to be happy. But purpose, the purpose of your marriage is greater than your flesh. So you must subdue the flesh, and light comes when you subdue your flesh. This is where you find joy, peace, ease, and restoration in your marriage. How is that for a preface? Those of you that are still on, how is that for a preface? A preface. Should I read the introduction? What do you think? Who's still on that wants to hear the introduction? Who's still on? Who wants to hear the introduction? Listen, marriage is all that. I love marriage. Every challenge I've gone through in my marriage, every situation I've gone through. Listen, you don't love the situation, you don't love the wilderness, but the lessons and the teachings and the trainings that came from those situations, I never take them for granted. I am grateful that the Bible says that we do not have a God that cannot, no, we do not have a priest. We do not have a high priest that cannot be touched with the feeling of our infirmity. He was at all points tempted, yet without sin. Jesus felt your pain and nailed it to the cross. That issue you're going through in your marriage, Jesus already felt it and He nailed it to the cross. He feels your pain. He knows those places that need healing in your marriage. He knows it. So tomorrow, you can't afford to miss this launch. You can pre-order your book tonight. As soon as I'm done, the link is on there. You can pre-order your book. See, the funny thing is, a lot of times, things that people need, the people that really need the book, they won't read it, they won't get it, they won't be involved. It always happens. There are people who need God to come in their hidden places in their marriage. There are people that need God's touch because He's the only one that can make your marriage what it's meant to be. Talking to a man, a woman doesn't fix the marriage necessarily. It's only but for a time. So people stop doing something and they go back to it. You need transformation. That's what happens when you get born again. You must be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Marriage, you must be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And many of us don't do it. We know what we need, but we don't succumb. We don't submit. So don't look and say, it's a marriage book, it's not for me. No, you single person is even more for you. Because once you understand what's at stake, you will stop falling in love uselessly. And you will stop falling in love recklessly. You can't afford to play with your life in the name of love. What is love? What is love? When you don't love yourself and you don't love God, trust me, you can't love a spouse. I promise you that. I can boldly declare this. You don't come and love a man, come and love a woman. You don't love yourself. You know you don't love yourself. You also know you don't love God because you're not submitted to God. You must be under His authority. as a woman, before you can even say, I'm going to be under the authority of a man. That's a lot of women who struggle to submit to men because they're not under any authority. They don't understand the concept of submission. So they struggle. So somebody said they're here. So let me read the introduction of my book tomorrow. Don't forget, if you need a Zoom link, inbox us tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Ghana time, okay? GMT. So I'm going to read the introduction of the book. Here's the introduction of the book, tomorrow's launch. The Death and Resurrection of Marriage. You can look that up on Amazon and you can order it right now, right here, right now. When the Lord asked me to write this book, I was reluctant because it is not formal. It's not normal for us to put our business out there. But I also quickly realized it wasn't about us. What may look and seem like shame to many as you read this book, God used for his glory. The Bible tells us that every good and perfect gift is from above. James 1:17. When we meet our spouse, we see them as gifts. We're excited for them. We just can't wait to get married, right? When you're dating, you're like, ah. Anybody that gets on your way, you can shoot them down. Because so far as you're concerned, you're in love. You got to get married tomorrow. As time goes by, the mundane tasks of life can create complacency within couples that dims the initial excitement. The complacency would dim the initial excitement of the relationship. So we begin to feel bored, frustrated, overwhelmed, and disappointed with the way things are. Instead of praying and finding effective ways to improve the current situation, there is a tendency to seek happiness outside the marriage through infidelity, addiction, or settling to become roommates. Who can relate? Who can relate? Listen, none of these things resolve the issues at hand. So you fall into an even deeper hole as you watch yourself drift apart from your spouse. See, so what I'm saying here is that you get married and then you get busy with life, you get busy. And for those who got married and took loans and got married, guess what? Now they got to spend the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years paying back the loan that they took to show off. Show off when nobody cared. But when you're getting married, you think everybody needs to see it. So you spend $40,000, $30,000, forgetting that those are down payments for homes. So you get married at this exorbitant price. And then when you're done, you're fighting to keep the roof over your head. Because nobody advised you that a marriage is a one-day event. I mean, a wedding is a one-day event and a marriage is a lifetime. And the marriage is very costly. And I explain to women, and mostly women because I work a lot with women, right? I explain to them that, look, marriage can be so costly, not just emotionally, but financially. And I explain to them how. Because there's some that get married and they don't even breathe. They start having kids. When you have kids, all of a sudden, you're not really prepared. You may not have the money. Everybody that told you, hurry up and get married, hurry up and get pregnant, they're not going to show up for you. That's the reality. So you're having to deal with working double shifts. Then you're excessively gaining weight, or you're not taking care of your health and you're overworking, you're not sleeping, you're overwhelmed. And so all those things impact your marriage. So that's what I mean by after you get married, the mundane tasks of life can cause you to become complacent because at this point you're surviving. And when you're surviving, you don't want nobody that will threaten your survival. Did you hear that? When you're in survival mode, you don't want anybody to threaten your survival. Anybody who threatens your survival is seen as a threat. So automatically you lash out. You lash out at your spouse that you so loved and couldn't wait to get your hands all over them. But now you got them to take put your hands on them and you don't even touch them. You want to go touch somebody outside. Okay? So, let me finish reading. I'm almost done. Then I'm going to end the live. John 10:10 says, the enemy comes but to steal, kill, and destroy. Once Satan steals your joy, you no longer feel like being around your spouse. Before you know it, you begin to take your spouse for granted. And arguments and tension begin to kill and destroy your relationship, your marriage. Satan's intent is to derail you from the course God has set in motion for you. If you learn nothing tonight, understand that Satan uses your marriage as a platform to derail you, to move you away from purpose. That's when things are going bad, you can't pray. You can't do anything. You can't. Both men and women grow up with preconceived notions of how marriage should be. Women are conditioned to develop a fairy tale idea of a charming prince coming to sweep them off their feet, and then living happily ever after. There are also others who grow up confused about the idea of love because they grew up in a home where those who loved them hurt them the most. Talking about those who were abused in their home. So how do you know love? If the people that are supposed to love you were ready to hurt you and push you down and talk down at you and use you as a scapegoat. Men, on the other hand, were taught to be hunters and gatherers. So when I see women proposing to men, they're out of order. Women on social media who have proposed to men, that level of despair, that marriage, you will be the one sustaining the marriage. But the reality is you cannot sustain the marriage. We don't do things out of order. There are things that are meant to be in order. There's a reason. Adam was created first for a reason. For a reason. Why didn't God make Eve first? So as a man, you're the head. You're the priest of your home. Yes, women are also kings and priests, and yes, all of that. But men have their position. Women are not lower, but men are in leadership. And women are there as a support to that leadership. So please, don't get so desperate that you propose to a man. If a man cannot bring himself to ask you to marry you, they don't want to be with you. It's that simple. So this book, The Death and the Resurrection of Marriage, speaks of how you must die to your flesh so that resurrection will happen and God will take over and your marriage will thrive. Your marriage can thrive. This is where you remove your sight, your eyes from your spouse and make God the center, the reason for your marriage. Until God is the reason for your marriage, your spouse will fail you. They're human. God is the one that is your center, your focus. That's who holds your hope, not a human. But many of us don't learn that. So we're in marriages frustrated, overwhelmed, sad, because you didn't catch the vision. So because the marriage is not going the way you want it to go, you stop your whole life, your purpose, your assignment. You're just depressed. For what? Let me finish reading. I was reading to you the introduction. I like to comment. You have to come on the book live. The book launched tomorrow, so you can hear more about the book. But let me finish one paragraph and then we're done. Okay. Men, on the other hand, are taught to be hunters and gatherers who chase after the woman they desire. Whichever category you fall in, you know the feeling of love carries power. Even those who loved the wrong, who didn't know how to love, they knew that love carries power. So we all desire it. Period. Last paragraph. As shocking as it may be, believers struggle in marriage too. I said that earlier. Believers are not exempt from unrealistic expectations. Marriage is between husbands and wives and God. we tend to leave out the source of the covenant in our marriage. That is God. So we get married and forget that God was involved from the beginning. As you read this book, you may be feeling unappreciated, experiencing financial difficulties, communication issues, unforgiveness, infidelity, complacency, or issues with intimacy in your marriage. The Bible states emphatically, can two walk together except they be agreed? Amos chapter 3 verse 3. What are they agreeing on? Let me tell you, they're agreeing on the word of the Lord. That is your key to experiencing a marriage filled with love, intimacy, and transparency. And then let's dive into the book. So if you had your book, you can dive in now that I'm done with the introduction. But you don't have your book. So I encourage you to get your book tonight. Get your book tonight and read this book. You can read the book in a couple of hours, not even 4. My first book takes 4 hours. This book, 2 to 3 hours, you're done. It's a quick book, a beautiful book. Tomorrow we'll unveil it and we'll have Dr. Fletcher bless this book as we release the book to the world. I am so thrilled, not because I've written a book, because I've written a book before, but this book is such a strong, bigger assignment. The assignment to save families, save marriages, preserve homes is not for the faint at heart. So the enemy will make you a point of contention. I'm very, in writing this book, several occasions, just a transparent post here, I kept thinking, God, you want me to do this, but what if something happens to my marriage? Have you ever been there? Where God is asking you to do something, you're like, I get it, but I don't know. Like, what if something happens to mine? What am I going to say? And as clear as day, I just felt the comfort in my spirit that you believe the God in the marriage. It's not the person, it's the God in the marriage. You believe the God in the marriage, not the person. Everything that is taught in the book is exclusive of abuse. The reason I'm saying it's exclusive of abuse is because I know how the victim mindset works. I also know how the abuser mindset works. I was a nationally certified domestic violence advocate for the Air Force for over 6 years. And I can tell you, I did training upon training to victims of violence, and I trained security forces, which is the military police, and I trained city police, state police, and I can tell you the abusive environment is a different environment. So if you need to talk about that, we can talk about it separately. Because if you're focusing on the God who called you, what do you do in the case of abuse? Knowing that the person can be dangerous. So as you read the book, believe me, all of those things have been addressed. This book is an in-depth. If you read my first book, you will understand when I say in-depth or like a one-stop shop. It's a one-stop shop on marriage. You can get more information somewhere else, I bet. But it will give you a perspective that you probably have not thought about. As I said, it's not a replica. It's original. It's inspired. It's God. It's the word. It's the word. So we believe the God in the marriage, not the man or the woman. Because they're human and they will fail you. But what doesn't change is what God has said to you. That's what doesn't change. His promises, his calling for your life, that doesn't change. So thank you for joining me tonight. I'm thrilled. I'm excited. I cannot wait for tomorrow. Tomorrow is such a big day for me. I'm so grateful. that the day has finally come and found me in this state. That God saw it deserving that I too will be called to share his word, called to serve the masses, called to deliver those that are bound in their marriages, and called to call out those with an assignment and purpose in their lives that has been hindered by marriage. Encourage these wives to come out. So I work a lot with wives. I do. I work a lot with wives. A lot. Because what you're going to come to find out is that most men don't want to seek help. It's the truth. I did therapy for years. Men, they will tell you they don't need therapy. I personally experienced it. I experienced it with my clients. It's always mostly the percentage of people seeking help is women. Women. I'm sure there are men that need and also seek therapy, but the vast majority are women. So as a woman, I'm here to guide you and help you and teach you. In fact, I have a course coming up next month, and it's a course on marriage as well. So keep your eyes posted on Coach Yeboah, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. You will also find me on Women of Value, but I don't normally do these lives on Women of Value, but you'll find me there every once in a while, every Wednesday. And I'll be coming on live more on Coach Yeboah as well.